Welcome back. We love talking about mental health awareness and something really interesting this morning when it comes to a recent study involving video games. So, apparently, this study was conducted just over the time during the pandemic, and there was a study actually out of Japan that studied people between ages 10 to 69 playing video games, and they've had some findings that it could be good for mental health. So, we wanted to break this down a little bit more, and we have licensed counselor Shantala Boss with us once again this morning. Good morning, Shantala.
Good morning, Bridget.
So there have been some recent studies, like we mentioned this one. There were some others. What is it that we're finding now about video games? Because they usually get a bad rap because they are addictive, and sometimes they keep us off track with other things we need to be getting done, such as taking care of other work that needs to be done, or maybe eating and sleeping properly. So there are those cons, but let's talk about the pros.
Exactly.
What did these
Well, the
studies
pros
find?
are really came out a lot during the pandemic because people were really looking at them as a social outlet. And that is really something that I think has been more on the horizon and up and coming with video games. So during the pandemic, people were locked in their houses. They weren't getting out. They weren't able to connect with other people. And so we really realized what a stress reliever video games can be and how helpful they can be in fostering that connection, teamwork, camaraderie when you are playing with other people and you are involved in a game and you are working on building levels. So, really, during this time is when the study took place. But even before that, these things were happening. So, video games aren't all bad and they can really be a very positive thing. The key is doing it in moderation because they can be highly addictive. So when you say things like, oh, the sleep schedules, the eating, that is one of the things that happens is kids and even adults will forget their daily functioning activities that they need to do because they will get so wrapped up in these games. So that's why a lot of times they get the bad rap. But when they are healthy games and appropriate games and good games, they can really be very effective in building creativity, stress relief, connecting with others. So that there are a lot of positives.
And so when we think about these games, I know one of these studies, they studied people using Nintendo, PlayStation, but it's not necessarily that you have to have a game console.
Right. It doesn't have to be. There are so many different types of games out there, and I honestly am not very well versed in gaming because I grew up, well, in the 80s. We didn't have all of these fancy types of games, but it's really amazing all the things that are out there and the ways that we can connect. And there are games that help with movement that even Peloton, that bike that people are on, and that really grew during the pandemic, has a whole video gaming system to keep people motivated to do group exercise and group activity. It's really amazing. You don't even have to leave your house and you can connect with other people and have same goals. And I think that this is going to grow into other things down the road. You know, we can connect with people all over the world. It really is an amazing and positive thing. Where we really have to be careful, though, obviously, like we talked about, is watching that, being in moderation,
Mm-hmm.
watching our sleep and eating schedules, and making sure that we're getting outside and connecting with the real world. Because we can get very engrossed in video games to the
Mm-hmm.
point where we feel like we're living in them sometimes. They're so lifelike.
And so that's been one of the concerns is sometimes with these games, lots of violence, gun violence, aggression, social
Mm-hmm.
isolation, like you mentioned. So I would imagine you need to be very careful about the games you're selecting with your family.
Absolutely. Making sure to pay attention to ratings and reviews and talking to other parents about, what is in the game, what they're seeing, because sometimes these things will sneak up on us, especially with the violence. There's different types of games. Some are a little bit more abstract. Maybe there's some fighting and some good and bad guys, but then there are other ones that are extremely graphic, horrible language, things that get into the subconscious of a young mind. We may think, well, they know better, they're not going to do any of that in the real world, but it is in their subconscious, and it can become a real issue with the way that they're thinking and behaving. So
Mm-hmm.
we want to be careful what we watch, what they're doing, and also just age appropriate games and play the games with your kids, get involved in those things. It's not easy to do. I mean, I don't have very good like hand-eye coordination, so I try to get on these games. I have a younger brother, he's 17. And I mean, it's just all bets are off. I can't play
and
more than
and
5 minutes and I'm already knocked out, but
and like
you
some
got
of
to
these
get
games
practice
help
at
you
it.
get better at those types of things, whether it's like the visuospatial, I think they call it, navigation. So things that kind of get you moving and
Yeah.
more coordinated, even games that help you with problem solving. And like you said, the social aspect as well, like being able to connect with friends and play together.
Well, even like crossword puzzles, they say you need to use crossword puzzles to use your mind to prevent dementia, Alzheimer's, all these things. Well, same thing with games, like you were saying, the spatial, you really have to be focused. You have to be thinking. You have to so there's a lot of positive with it. It's just, getting past the addictive part of it because it did become an addictive,
Right. So what are
actually
those
became a
three
diagnosis.
takeaways when it comes to like making sure you don't go the wrong way with this?
Well, setting time limits with video games. They say if you do more than 3 hours a day, it can become very detrimental. I would say more than an hour and a half a day, but in my opinion, and making sure to have appropriate eating and sleeping schedules surrounding it. So even if you have a whole day that you're able to play a video game, making sure that you set appropriate time limits still to get outside, get exercise, make sure you're eating and sleeping and interacting with the real world. Those things are very important. And also just watching that you use appropriate games that are age appropriate and healthy for you and for your mind and body.
All
Also, we
right.
don't want to watch video games right before we go to bed
That's true
because
too.
that's not helpful with sleep. So
That's good advice as well. Anything else we want to leave people with before we go?
I think that's all. Yeah. It's good
Yeah,
news. Some good
it
things
is.
out there that we can play and learn from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Something to think about as always, Shantala. Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye. Before we go,